And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a game that is a pick up and deliver, or more of a route building and delivery game. That game is Trains and Stations by Wizkids Games. This is a game for 3 to 5 players, and it's kind of hard to describe, but you're going to be rolling dice in order to build train routes, build buildings, and hopefully collect different types of goods. Now, building an entire route is called a delivery, which will give you bonuses in the game, as well as victory points, and hopefully allow you to further your own position and win the game. But before I get into it too much, why don't we just go ahead and take a look at what you get inside of this box. We'll see how the game plays, and then we'll come back here at the end and we'll get my opinions of it. Here you can see the components for Trains and Stations. Now, this is a 3 to 5 player game. The only difference in the 3-player game, the 4-player game, and the 5-player game is going to be the number of victory point cards that you use. You'll use fewer for 3 and 4 players. You'll use all of them for 5 players. What we can see here is we have a board here with several different cities. We have Miami, New York, Boston, and then over on the West Coast we have Seattle, Los Angeles. You get the idea. It's a map of the United States. Each player is going to have certain things. They're going to have some dice, and on these dice you'll have different sides. You're going to have a mine icon, you'll have a train icon, coins, you'll have a locked train, you will have a ranch, and you'll have a hotel. So there's going to be 6 different sides on each die, and rolling these dice is going to determine what you're able to do on your turn. In addition, each player is going to start with 3 victory points. You can gain or lose victory points. You're going to start with 3 coins, which you can use to reroll your dice. Some buildings, which represent different buildings you can build. We have mines here. We have some hotels that look like this, little tiny hotels. And we have some ranches. Each player has 3 of each of those. Finally, players are going to start the game. They're going to be dealt 3 of these power cards. These are cards throughout the game that you can use in order to try and get bonus victory points, or they can give you a benefit throughout the game. So we'll see on these that they may have 2 routes, or a route, which this one is Boston and New Orleans. It's worth 6 victory points, but you could have something like Seattle and San Antonio, which is also 6 victory points. Or this one here is Seattle and New Orleans, a little bit further apart, so it's worth more victory points. Some of these cards may not have that exact same layout. Some of them, while having cities, others may have icons on them that represent different types of goods. This one has 2 coal on it. Or we have one here that has a gold on it. You can either use this in the game at some point, or you can use it at the end of the game in order to get a scoring benefit. So, you can use it to trade, or you can use it to score at the end. With these power cards, each player is going to choose 2 of them to have in the game. You can gain more throughout the game, but maybe you choose 2 that are going to allow you to go to the same location, or maybe you're going to want to choose 2 that allow you to go to different locations. It all depends on how you think the game will play out. But when you get 3 of these, you're going to choose 2 to keep, you're going to discard the last one, and then you're going to start the game. The conductor's hat here will go to the first player, and it's going to allow you to denote or to keep track of equal numbers of turns, because the game will end once all of these victory point cards are gone, but each player gets an equal number of turns. So the conductor will always be the first player of the round and will not get to end or get another turn at the end of the game. So how this is going to work is that on a player's turn, they are first going to go ahead and they're going to gather their dice. They can have saved dice from previous turns. On a turn's end, you can save any of the building dice. Building dice are going to be the ones with the steer on them, the ones with the coal on them, or the ones with the bell on it for the hotel. You can save these from turn to turn because you need them to build buildings. You may also save coins. You can save coins because you're only allowed to have a maximum of 5 coins on your turn. Those are going to be used to re-roll dice. So maybe you want to save coins because you're going to spend some now, but you can't keep 2, which the die will give you, so you save it for a future turn after you've spent some more. Anyhow, you're going to gather 5 dice. First, you'll take your saved dice, so if you had some set aside, you would take those, and then you're going to add more. You can add 3 more. In addition, you may have bonus dice that you get from rewards from completing routes and having the majority between those routes. You may add these to your dice in addition to the 5 that you roll in order to get more dice on your turn. After you've gathered your 5 dice, you're going to go ahead and you're going to roll them. So you'll roll these out and you're going to see what kind of results you get. So let's take a look here. Our player has rolled 2 locked trains. These are the only dice you may not re-roll. In addition, if you ever roll 3 locked trains, they look like this, you are going to have your workers strike. You're going to lose 3 victory points. You're going to no longer get any more rerolls, and then you're going to have to continue on with your turn. If you don't have 3 VP to lose, you're going to lose all of your victory points. So, rolling 3 of these is bad. Once you've looked at your rolls, we have 2 locked trains, a normal train, and we have a coal mine. Now, I am allowed to reroll any dice I want for 1 coin. So I can spend a coin and reroll these 3. Of course, the 2 trains can't be rerolled, the 2 locked trains, because they're locked. But I could spend this and reroll any others I wanted. Maybe I like the fact that I have 3 trains. I'd like to get more trains, but I don't really want to get another locked train. So I'm going to reroll these 2 dice and hope I don't get a locked train. Well, I did. I got a locked train, so now I have 3 locked trains, which ends my rerolls. I have another train and another train, so I have 5 trains, but I do lose 3 victory points. So these 3 that I started with are returned to the game board. After this, I have to place these dice, and 5 trains is going to allow me to fill in 5 of these areas between 2 of these cities. So I'm going to want to look at what's on my cards and see if I can finish any of those routes. I have Seattle and San Antonio, and Boston and New Orleans. So I'm going to find San Antonio. Let's find Seattle, here to here. Well, I'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I only have 5. I can't connect the 2 of those right now, but I could start working on it. I also had New Orleans to Boston, and New Orleans to Boston is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can actually fill that in. So why don't we go ahead and do that? I'm going to go ahead and place 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I have completed the New Orleans to Boston route. Now that the player has placed all of their dice, we're going to go ahead and move on. Please note that you do not have to finish routes on your own. On a different turn, another player may help finish these routes by placing dice there, and that would benefit them in the terms of victory points. But in this case, this player has managed to finish 2 routes on their own, from New Orleans to New York and New York to Boston. Once they're done placing their dice, they don't have any building dice to use, and they don't have any coin dice. They're basically all out of dice to place. They're going to go ahead and they're going to resolve the deliveries that happen between these connected cities. And that's how you're going to score victory points. So for each of the cities that is connected by the dice that are placed, you're going to get 1 victory point. So in this case, the New Orleans is connected to New York. That player is going to get 2 victory points for this route, and Boston is connected to New York. This player is also going to get 2 victory points there for a total of 4 VP, which they would pick up in terms of these cards right here. If another player had placed a die out here, they're going to get points as well. So it doesn't matter how many dice you have here, you're still going to get 1 point for each city if you have any dice between those 2 cities. In addition, the player who has the majority of the dice between 2 cities is going to score the bonuses of the city. For example, New Orleans here has a bonus of 1 VP, which of course would go to our player here and take 1 extra victory point. So they now get 5 for all of their hard work in completing that area, and they could just take one of these 5 victory point cards. In addition, they're going to get the New York bonus, which is going to be a bonus die. They can set this aside and they can use it on one of their future turns to roll more dice. Note that when placing these dice out onto the board as rails, they do not count for your majority between 2 cities. Finally, you're going to go ahead and you're going to get another bonus die because you have the Boston to New York connection. And then this player has their card that they may reveal, which is the Boston and New Orleans connection, which is now made all in 1 turn. They can reveal this, and they get 6 victory points for the end of the game. After that's done, they're going to take all of their dice off of the board, return them to their pool, and they're going to pass on to the next player. Now that was a rather fortunate roll for me. I know I lost 3 victory points, but I did get to do a lot of stuff by placing trains in 1 turn. However, you can get different results. For example, you can build buildings on your turn, and this will happen if you roll 3 of the same building result. You'll see here, for example, that I could have rolled 3 hotels. What this would allow me to do is it's going to allow me to place a building out onto the board, and that would be one of my hotel buildings. I can place this on any city here that has an opening for it. So you'll see these little blue spots here. These are openings for buildings. And when you place one of these out here, it's essentially going to be something that generates goods when deliveries are completed between those city and another city on that route. So for example, now if a delivery were completed between Miami and New York by building 4 different trains here, I'm going to get a payout on my hotel. And on the hotel, the payout is going to be, right now it's going to be workers. But that can change throughout the game. So right now it's workers for the hotel, and you can see this underneath here. The hotel has workers, or you can see it up above. But later in the game, once all of the workers are gone, it could be food, or it could be silver, whichever one is left, and you get to choose when this stack runs out. Or it could be coal for the mine, but later that could be silver, or if the silver is gone, it could be gold. Or for the ranches, it's going to be cattle, but later it could be food, and at the end of the game it could be gold if the food is run out. So these goods are going to change as the game goes on, but you're trying to collect them by building these buildings and then completing routes between the two different cities. Each time that route is completed, everybody who has a building there is going to get one of the corresponding goods. So if a route were completed between New York and Miami, that player is going to go ahead and pick up a worker. But if another player had built a ranch out here, the player would get one of the steer. Or if they completed a mine on New York, they would pick up one of the coal. At the end of the game, you're going to score based on how many of these you have, and whoever has the majority is going to get bonus victory points for having each of these different types of goods. Throughout the game, when the goods are depleted, you may trade in your secretive good cards as you collect them, 2 for 1 to get some of the new good. So if you think you have an excess of one of the goods, well more than another player, you can trade in some of your goods to get some of the new good and hopefully build a lot of those cards in order to get more victory points at the end of the game for having multiple majorities in different types of goods. You're going to keep playing in this manner, building connections, trying to build buildings in order to profit off of these deliveries and connections, getting your food or your steer or your workers or your coal or your silver or your gold as they come into the game, trying to have majorities in those, get victory points by having dice in the different completed routes until you run out of victory points here. And then you're going to go all the way to the end of that round, meaning that the first player will not get to go again unless it's their turn right away. But you're going to go ahead and go to the end of the round, and at that end of the round, you're going to score additional victory points. And those are going to be based on who has the majorities in each of these different types of goods that they've picked up throughout the game. So for whoever has the most workers, it's going to be worth 4 points, and these are printed right on the card. Whoever has the most coal is going to get 6, and whoever has the most steer will get 6. You'll see the goods that come in later, like food, are worth 7. And silver, also worth 7, while gold is worth 9. So as you try and collect these, you're going to want to pay attention to which ones are worth more victory points, which ones are easier to pick up, and how you can best benefit from getting those points. Anyhow, whoever best manages to do all of this stuff and get those victory points throughout the game will be the winner. And there you have it. That is Trains and Stations by Wizkids Games. Gotta be honest, this isn't one that really caught me a whole lot. Dice rolling has really never been my thing, and I do like a good controlled dice rolling game. This one does give you the option of re-rolling those dice by paying coins, and you can collect up to 5 coins and hold on to them so that you can re-roll when you need them. But if you roll 3 of the locked trains, you're simply done. No more re-rolls, you lose 3 points, and your workers go on strike, and then you have to go ahead and kind of continue with what you've got. Now you can carry over dice from turn to turn if this happens, but the locked trains have to be placed, and so that takes a little bit away from it for me. I know it's a control scenario, but I don't like it. There's not a whole lot of strategy to the game. You're kind of go in the direction that your cards, your power cards, tell you to go. Granted, you get to choose 2 out of 3 at the beginning, but from those you kind of are directed in one way or the other. You can try and score the majority of your victory points by collecting goods, but that assumes that you roll the right things to build the right buildings to get the right goods, and that nobody else does it before you or better. So overall, I'd say it's pretty luck-based, and that's going to come with dice. It's not something that's for me. It's light and easy. It's going to be play pretty quickly, but I can't really recommend it for people who have similar tastes to mine. However, if you do like lighter, more random games, this one looks good to you, feel free to check it out. That is Trains and Stations from Wizkids Games.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.